One of the primary reasons that people exercise is to try to lose weight. But if you've followed our content for any length of time, or if you've read our book, The Exercise for Life Method, you know that the goal of exercise is not to lose weight. However, this doesn't discount the fact that most people are still trying to lose weight with their workouts. So if this is you, and you are wanting your workouts to help you lose weight, what should you be focusing on with your workouts in order to help you do that? This is exactly what we're going to be discussing on today's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast. We're going to cue the intro song, and then we're going to dive right into this conversation. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, what's going on, exercisers? This is Charlie. Before we dive into this week's episode, I want to let you know about a new training that's happening this week titled How to Rebuild Your Aching Body in as Little as 6 weeks Without Changing Your Lifestyle. See, if you love the discussions that we have every single week on the Exercise is Health podcast, but you want more of the practical application, the details of how to take the information and apply it to your workouts, then you need to be on this training. All you have to do to get registered for free is go to secrets.exerciseforlifemethod.com. But space is limited, so make sure to get registered ASAP. Now, without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, here in Schaumburg, Illinois, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset, and the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. Now, we want to thank all of you exercisers for a moment. Every single one of you have taken the time to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Look, every single week we are trying to bring you our best content in order to help you build your health, in order to help you exercise consistently in ways that are sustainable for your body and for your life. So if you found value in any of our podcasts, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It means the world to us. And so many of you already have, so we want to highlight one that we recently received.
This 5-star review says, "I love this podcast and can't wait to hear it every week. I thought I knew it all when it came to exercise, but this podcast has taught me things I never knew. Thank you." Thank you so much for this review. I hope to hear from you, our exercisers community, and you never know, you might hear your review on the podcast next week.
Now, so often when people exercise, they start off because they want to lose weight, all right? But if you've listened to our content for any length of time, or maybe you've read our book, The Exercise for Life Method, you'll know that, at least in our opinion, the goal of exercise is not weight loss. In fact, we dedicated the entire section in our book, The Exercise for Life Method, discussing why this is and what we believe the goal of exercise to be instead. However, this does not discount the fact that so many people still are trying to lose weight from their workouts. So the question is, how should you be going about doing that? If you truly want to lose weight, and if you are wanting your exercise to help aid in that process, what things should you be focusing on with your workouts in order to help you accomplish that goal?
You know, in my first personal training job, we were required to buy this band thingy to go on our arm that would measure our calorie output. And this calorie output was so important to every trainer. We actually had to document it with the training manager, and it ingrained in my brain. And I know that many other trainers out there have been kind of ingrained and taught this, that exercise and movement, it was purely about calorie burn. And when we think about calories, that's mostly because we're thinking about weight loss. And I remember not even being able to handle weight training and improving my joint health and function because I was so preoccupied with burning calories. And what I mean by that is that I physically could not do it. You might have heard that and thought, well, oh yeah, you just spend all your time running or something, or spend all your time on the bike. You're just too busy. Or, I was teaching all these group fitness classes, which were all cardio based. But because of the highlight, it wasn't that I didn't have time to weight train. I did have time to weight train, but I was fatiguing my body so much just to burn calories that I was completely missing the whole point of exercise. And I was running myself into chronic fatigue. Now, there are other issues that arise from highlighting just calorie burn, things that are more common other than chronic fatigue, which are joint pain and muscle dysfunction. But we really have to start shifting our perspective when it comes to exercise and weight loss, because when we exercise to lose weight, the side effects are detrimental. And we really have to get around that, because you and me and our whole community of exercisers, we need to be exercising for the length of our life. Not for the next 90 days, not till we lose the 50 pounds. It's for the rest of our life. So how do we set up our exercise so that it supports our weight loss and supports the rest of our life?
Julie, I really appreciate you bringing up that story. Actually, I was going to share something very similar, in that I remember when we first met. I don't know if you remember this conversation or not, but when we first met, and you would wake up really early every morning, mm-hmm. and you would go for a run, and mm-hmm. The run would be 45 minutes, an hour. Mm-hmm. You would do it every single morning. And I remember asking you one day, why don't you ever do any resistance training? Why do you just run? And I remember you saying, well, why would I do resistance training? Running has been shown to be the thing that burns the most calories. Mm-hmm. So why would I ever do resistance training? I thought that's a really interesting perspective. And so I appreciate that you kind of gave the background of, why that was just kind of like ingrained in your beliefs and, how you saw exercise, and especially from a weight loss perspective, that it's all about the calorie burn. And so many people believe this, right? That's why on almost every single workout app, you're going to see how many calories you burned during a workout. Julie, I know you've talked about this before, where you do a cycle workout and it shows you, oh, congratulations, you just did, a 30-minute cycle workout. Here's how many calories you burned. And it's like, but so much more stuff happened other than just the calories. So even if we want to try to get away from the idea that exercise is more than just about burning calories, the whole system is almost set up against us to be like, no, you need to come back. Come focus on your calories. Come focus on your calories. How many calories did you burn? Oh, this exercise burns this much. And, this workout burns this many calories and everything like that. But like you were saying, Julie, that really ultimately sets us up for failure. And when I say failure, I mean it sets us up to not be able to exercise for the long term. And if somehow we are able to gut out exercising for the long term in this manner, it comes with its own whole bag of issues. Joint pain, chronic muscle tightness, all the itises, fasciitis, arthritis, all this stuff. And so people who continue to try to force their body to do this stuff where they're just focused on the calorie burn, it catches up, and it always catches up. And so the question is, well, all right, well, we're told that like weight loss is this calories in, calories out thing, which it's not, but if we want to play that game, how do you actually go about using your exercise to support your body so you can continue to exercise for the long term, and so you can continue to have the opportunity to do the things like the running and the cycling and all the stuff that, may or may not burn more calories, but you want to do it anyways because that's ultimately what you want to do. What should you be focusing on with your workouts to help you do that?
Charlie, I love everything you said there, especially with thinking about reframing what is the role of exercise in your weight loss. It's not purely a mechanism to bump up the calories out, right? Because the calories in come from the food you put in your mouth and your body, and the calories out, meaning the calories that you burn, a lot of us think, oh, well, let me manipulate that with exercise. So don't fall into that trap, because our bodies almost can't even handle the side effects. And if you are handling them, they don't feel good to handle. Let's just not have to handle them. So what are some principles that you can apply? Because I also don't want you to listen to this podcast and be like, see, Charlie and Julie said, don't exercise if you want to lose weight. I've had a lot of clients that will reach out to me and be like, I want to lose weight. And then 6 months later, they'll come in and be like, well, because I wanted to lose a bunch of weight before I started exercising. Or they come in and they're like, well, I got to exercise really, really hard to force the weight loss. So what principles can you apply to your exercise right now to be the most supportive and the best for your weight loss journey? Because exercise is an amazing addition to your weight loss. So the first thing is to exercise in a way that is respectful to your muscles and joints. The biggest nastiest side effect of exercising to force weight loss is joint pain and muscle dysfunction. I see so often people, I've had a handful of clients come in for MAT post weight loss journey saying, well, I lost the weight, but now I think I need 2 knee replacements because I overdid it. I harassed my knee joints. So you really have to structure your exercise to promote the health and function of your muscles and joints. The best, most potent, most effective way to do this is to weight train.
Yes, absolutely. And when you're doing your weight training, which gets into point number 2, because absolutely, you want to make sure you are prioritizing your resistance training throughout the week. One, it's going to keep your muscles functioning and it's going to keep your muscles healthy and functioning well. Number 2, it's going to keep your joints healthy and functioning well. All right, but only when you do it in a specific manner, because there are a lot of ways of doing resistance training that can make you worse. And so, well, how do you go about doing it in a way that actually builds the health and function of your muscles and builds the health and function of your joints? And one of the primary things that can help you do that is when you're doing the exercise, keep your focus on squeezing your muscles. All right, one of the reasons why trying to do exercise to burn calories becomes so detrimental to the health of our body is because it puts your focus outside of your body while you're doing the exercise. Meaning, if you're thinking about doing an exercise to burn calories, are you thinking about trying to do something really easy, or maybe something that's a little bit more intense or really intense than what you're used to? Okay. Like, I'm not saying that, when I think about burning calories, I don't think about, doing sprints or whatever, but I've had a number of clients say, well, why would I get up and move throughout the day? It's not, a big calorie burn. So we don't see just kind of like the easy stuff as like, oh, that's the thing that's going to burn our calories. Like, we think about the things that are more challenging to our bodies as the things that are going to burn our calories, the activities that will burn calories. Well, the thing about it is oftentimes the more challenging we make it for ourselves, our brain wants to make it feel less challenging. So it doesn't focus on what we're doing. It distracts us with our music. It distracts us with the instructor. It distracts us with, people watching and everything like that. And we don't realize until we finish a workout or until we've done this for multiple weeks or months in a row, just the toll that it takes on our muscles and the toll that it takes on our joints in terms of our muscles get really tight and really achy, and our joints are painful, not necessarily to the touch, but every time we try to like move our shoulder, walk up and down stairs, like our joints hurt. All right, this is often a result of focusing on things that are outside of your body while you're doing your exercise. So when you're prioritizing your resistance training, make sure that you are focused on squeezing your muscles.
Absolutely. The more internal we can bring our exercise versus external, like the number of calories or the number of steps or the number of reps or achieving, the next level on the high jump or whatever. Those are external. The more that we can bring it internal, which is thinking about muscles and joints, the more potent your exercise will become for your health, but it also will be the most supportive for your weight loss because your body is going to go through a lot of stressors as you lose weight, and your exercise should not be contributing to that. Now you're thinking, okay, I got it. I want to focus on my muscles. How do I do that? So when we're thinking about really highlighting and focusing on your muscles, the first easiest way to do it is to move ultra slow. And when you move ultra slow, you're going to feel like, okay, the bicep curls or the knee extension that I was doing just got way harder. I don't know if I like that, but it got way harder. So manipulate the amount of weight you're doing, the amount of reps you're doing to support a really slow speed. A slow speed is the most surefire way to make sure that your muscles are leading motion rather than something called momentum, which is where mass is kind of moving by itself due to its speed.
Yeah, Julie, I love that you brought up the point of lowering the weight. I find that most times when people are actually moving the speed that they should be moving, they have to use about half the weight that they think they would normally use in order to do the exercise. And that can be shocking to a lot of people. It's like, I'm going to cut my weight in half. Like, is it even going to feel hard at all? It's like, yeah, it is going to feel really hard because you're not using momentum, all right? The fact that you're able to use twice as much weight and have it feel the same amount of hard when you're moving fast just shows you just how much using momentum was aiding you in actually lifting the weight. But when you cut that weight in half and you move at the speed that you need to move, it's going to feel way more focused, it's going to feel way more challenging, and it's going to feel way more fatiguing from the onset of the exercise all the way through until you cannot do another rep, way more than it ever has before. And this is often shocking to people because we think that the challenge of the exercise or the fatigue experience from the exercise is a result of how much weight we're using, and actually it's a result of how much we're challenging our muscles. And moving slowly and focusing on our squeezing muscles is a way to greatly increase that challenge.
Absolutely. And just because you're lowering your weight in the now doesn't mean that you're going to be at that weight forever. And focusing on how much weight is in the dumbbell that you're holding is another external goal. So we're only using these external things like dumbbells or the weight machines or body weight to apply challenge to a muscle tissue so that it can be stimulated. And what we have to do is, it doesn't matter how much weight is in the dumbbell or on the weight machine. It matters how much stimulus is actually getting to your muscle. So moving slowly and then manipulating your variables around that is incredibly important. And this is also a great way to keep your joints feeling really healthy as you go along your weight loss journey.
For sure. Okay, so you want to prioritize your resistance training. While you're doing your resistance training, you want to make sure that you are focused on squeezing your muscles and that you're moving slowly. But there's one more thing to focus on if you're wanting your workouts to help you lose weight, and that is to be body matching your exercise, all right? What does body matching mean? Well, body matching means when you go and you do a squat, for example, you don't look at, the video on YouTube and say, I'm going to try to mimic exactly what is being done in the YouTube video. You say, okay, this is kind of the general idea of what's being done in the YouTube video, but let me see how that motion feels for my body. Let me see how my body can perform that motion. And then let me try to match the challenge to how my body is doing today, how my body is able to do the motion, how my body is feeling during the exercise. So in other words, instead of trying to fit your body into the cookie cutter mold of how to do the exercise, you're saying, well, this is my body. I am going to build an exercise for my body. I'm going to match the exercise to how my body is doing. So the reason why this is so important is because when it comes to being able to exercise for the long term, and when it comes to making sure that you're able to keep coming back to your workouts day after day, decade after decade, and then continue to build your health, minimizing the negative consequences that can come from your workouts is super important. Minimizing the aches and the soreness that can come, that your muscles might feel, minimizing the joint pain that might be experienced with your workouts. You want to minimize that as much as possible. And the way to do that is by making sure your workouts are appropriate for your body. And the easiest way to make sure that your workouts are appropriate for your body is to body match your exercise every single time you work out.
All right. Congratulations on starting your weight loss journey, or at least thinking about it. Or maybe you've been on your weight loss journey and you are just constantly looking for more information to improve your effectiveness and potency of using exercise on your journey. So the 4 points that Charlie and I brought up today to really keep in mind when using exercise is, number 1, prioritize your resistance training. Really make sure that you are resistance training multiple times per week. Schedule it, find a trainer, figure out how you're going to make sure you're getting in your resistance training. Number 2, you got to think about the internal stuff. You got to be thinking about, how are my muscles doing? When I weight train, can I highlight my muscles? Making sure I'm being mindful of my joints. Again, a lot of times exercise when used in a weight loss journey is very focused on the external stuff like burning calories, getting in steps, doing a number of reps, things like that. The third point we talked about was really making sure that you move slowly when you exercise. And again, we talked about how this was really the easiest way to turn your workouts from an external focus to an internal focus of improving the health and function of your muscles and joints. Our last point, and probably the most potent one to make sure that you can exercise for decades and decades, is to constantly be body matching your exercise. This means making the choices, making the changes, making the adjustments that you need so that exercise feels good on your body. Good doesn't mean necessarily easy, but it means that it's not injuring your body. It means it's respecting how your joints are feeling and functioning that day. So apply these 4 principles to make sure that your exercise in your weight loss journey is a lifelong addition.
So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that's interested in losing weight or on the journey of losing weight, and they're really trying to use exercise to aid in that? Share this episode with them so they know what we recommend them focusing on with their workouts in order to make sure that their exercise is sustainable for their body and sustainable for their life. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find this episode when they're looking for information on exercise and looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. So what'd you think about that episode? Did you find the information useful? If you enjoyed what we discussed during today's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, then you are going to love what I'm going to be presenting during my new training, How to Rebuild Your Aching Body in as little as 6 weeks without changing your lifestyle. It's happening this week, and you can get registered for free by going to secrets.exerciseforlifemethod.com. But space is limited, so you need to head there now. secrets.exerciseforlifemethod.com, and I can't wait to see you there. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Cates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.